Tuesday, what's up Wednesday? How's it going Thursday? From Friday and Saturday and Sunday, it's a weekend update.
So I wanted to quickly start by being super honest that we did already record this podcast before, but we are doing different short films. We did 3 or 4 different short films last time we did the podcast. My fault. I actually forgot to download the podcast when I got off the website that we use to record when we're not in the same room. And so this is us redoing our podcast on short film appreciation and trying to shed some light on short films, how great they are, and the fact that not that many people watch them. Hey guys, this is editing Treasa here, and I just wanted to interrupt the podcast really quickly and let you know what we're about to talk about because we kind of just jump into it and it's a little confusing. So we jump into talking about a short film that we were recommended from one of you guys on Instagram. I'm so sorry. I don't know who recommended because we didn't say it and we recorded this a couple weeks ago. But we actually did talk about a different short film that someone recommended in the podcast that I mentioned that I deleted. And then we ended up talking about this one in this one. So we used 2 of your recommendations, but only one will get shown. The other one we mentioned was he takes his skin off for her. I think he takes his skin off for her. If you're interested, go check it out. I highly recommend that one. I love it. But in this episode, we will be talking about one recommended film from Instagram. That'll be the first thing we talk about. And then we will get into the short films that myself, Mora, and Rosie have selected and brought to each other to watch and discuss and share. So thank you so much if you are actually watching this and enjoying it. I am so sorry we have been a lot more inconsistent as of late. We're kind of working through some kinks and figuring out how walking produce is going to fit into our lives moving forward. But we really do appreciate everyone who is subscribed to us or watches us on Instagram, and we appreciate the motivation that you provide us. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this very special podcast where we talk about Black Lives Matter and short films.
So what did you guys think of that short film called Behind the Post, Will and Zoe?
It was a good representation of life in 2020. It was actually made in 2017, but I guess things haven't changed that much since then. Maybe even worse now. A lot of people like to judge people based on what they post on social media, even though it's probably the smallest snapshot of their life.
The reason why that film really resonates with me is because it really came up in such a necessary time. I watched it on an ad on Instagram when I was scrolling through, like back in 2017, and it popped up for me, and I was like, whoa. And it's an ad to bring awareness and everything. And it was, you would see part 1, part 2, and part 3. That film is all of the parts. And it makes so much sense to me because, you know, you do see the best parts of anybody's lives on social media. You see them like smiling, them, you know, posting the happy parts, the positive parts, but you don't really see the negative effects. You don't really see what they're actually feeling unless they're that honest. You know what I mean? But even if you're that honest, you're not that honest 100% of the time. Yeah. So to say, like, you know, to have that idea of not ignorance, but just that, like, you put a facade on, you put a mask on what you're actually looking at because you're not thinking about it in a deeper level. I liked the film a lot, mainly just because of that, because it reminds me that not everybody's life is happy-go-lucky all the time, even though that is what you see mainly on social media. Albeit recently, a lot of people are getting more honest. What do you think?
Yeah. This short film definitely. I just watched it and then I skimmed back to it and I just like skipped to a certain part. And the part that can we do a spoiler alert? Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm about to describe this whole thing. So the part that I skimmed back to just because I know we're not speaking about this for a long time, was the part where they're in the car with two other friends, or what looks like friends, and
Yeah.
he's driving and he tries to grab her thigh or whatever, or he tries to grab her and she pulls away.
Right.
And literally, like, people's lives on a daily show the ugly because they don't have no choice to hide it. But when they go on social media, it's like their own personal TV show and they could edit as
Right.
much as they possibly want.
Right.
So that's a super good interpretation of like how what it seems like is not really what it's like. And it goes both ways. There are guys that have super hot girlfriends and it's like everybody's like, wow, great. Or super like to everybody else modest or nice girlfriend. And everybody's like, wow, great. And like to the guy, he's like, save me. And like, it's just crazy that we live in a world where nobody should want to show the emotion. They just rather like show the facade because they know the facade is what they rather see or be seen in.
That was super interesting, Rosie. What kind of girlfriend do you have?
Honestly, I have the best of both worlds. I have a girlfriend.
What?
But at the end of the day, it still goes back to save me.
Not in the middle of the day is like that. At the end of the day, it's like, all right, don't save me. I don't need saving. This was actually great. Great. Don't save me.
That's so funny.
That's way too much information and we need to move on.
All right, guys.
Also, I did want to talk about, Mora, you did mention that as of late, people are talking a little bit differently on social media and especially on Instagram. I feel like that's the main platform that I tend to use. And a lot of people are using it to talk about Black Lives Matter rather than their actual day-to-day life at the moment. For most people, they're trying to be like a little bit more honest and shed light on a situation that is horrible. So we decided when we were going to redo the podcast to, instead of just doing short films, we're going to focus on Black culture and watch short films that we may have otherwise missed. And so therefore, all these films are either about Black Lives Matter or they are made by Black creators. So we're going to link all of the short films in the description, as well as the one that we just watched, which thank you guys for that one because it sheds light on a different situation.
All right, guys. So this is Weekend Update with Walking Produce. I am Mora.
And I am Tiirous.
And as we talked about just 2 seconds ago, we're going to be talking about a couple of short films that really highlight Black culture. Not really highlight Black culture. It's just honestly, the one that I chose is made by an incredible Black creator who just blows it away. So, but we'll talk about mine at the end. Tiirous, you chose The Big Chop. What brought you to that film?
Even before I get into that, these are just films that are like inspired through Black culture, or it has a Black director, or just is creative in that within that culture. I chose The Big Chop just because like it's one of those stories that teaches young girls or young kids to not have to change because of the world, because eventually you'll get back to your same happy and same like primal confident self, and whether it be physical, mental, emotional, you shouldn't have to conform to the world. You shouldn't have to bend to its will. You just grow up and you find your way and you continue with your confidence and you just find yourself. But also it's very funny. It's one of the embarrassed to say, but this film I share a bit of the experience, because this is all about this is all about young Black girl. Her mom tries to do her hair and she refuses to get a perm. The comb breaks. Her hair is just rough, but she likes the afro look, so she just goes out and she just goes have fun with her. She's 8, I think. She goes out with her friend that later becomes her boyfriend when they're like 25 or whatever. But she goes out with him and they go to the park. And while they're playing, two other kids just make fun of her for not having straight hair. And they both did the perm. And so, like, it was just funny how when I used to have long hair or like an afro, my mom tried to comb it, broke a comb, embarrassed to say it, permed my hair at one point, and like just regretted it immediately after. So what brought me to this was just like great story, funny. and it just teaches you to just be you and not conform. What was your takes on it, guys?
You know, it's funny. I fully relate, and it isn't it isn't as much as breaking the comb, but my mother, like because I have such curly hair, and it's just any Puerto Rican will relate. It um just taking the brush and just pulling that moment where her mom is like pulling her hair in the beginning, it just hurts me in my heart because
Memories.
I know that feeling. And like, so back in January, my mom, like I asked my mom to do my hair. I was just like, hey, like, she does like French braids really well. And also I hadn't had my hair brushed by my mom since I was little. So I don't know. I just thought it was nice. Yo, again, like just taking the brush and yanking my hair out to the point where I actually did break. Uh, I have a part of my bangs that are significantly shorter now because she ripped my hair out. Yeah,
Oh no.
it's that moment with her. I was like, and when she wanted to just go out with the afro, I legit, like, I did go to school like that one day. I just brushed it all out because I was like, this is free and it's big and whatever. I'm not going to put any conditioner in it, nothing. And it's just this giant thing in my hair. Me and my cousin both did that because we both have extremely curly hair, and we just kind of decided, like, you know what, we're just going to go out and like fuck what other people think. You know what I mean? And that was just a moment for us. But it's so interesting how she goes out into the world with confidence, but then like two girls decide to tell her, oh my God, like, how could you come outside like that? Like, pretty much, how could you have the confidence to look like the way that you do?
Yeah.
And then it ends up, causing a lot of pain until she became an adult and was like, okay, fine, like, just take my picture. You know what I mean? But that just shows that she has to like rebuild that confidence and everything. And we can assume that she did from that point.
It's almost as if, sorry about that. It's almost as if like they were jealous of her confidence
Yeah,
and unwillingness to change,
right.
and like they had to bring her down for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that's a common theme with children. Um, I couldn't personally relate as far as my hair goes because, I have pin straight hair, but I do have friends that have gone through this and shared this story with me. So it resonated in that I could picture their stories and the fact that growing up, their moms had said to them, like, it's not okay, you have to have permed hair, and would force them to get permed hair since a very, very young age. And now as adults, they are fighting against that, and they're all about the natural hair movement. And, I watch them on social media because we're far apart, growing their hair out and showing people how to take care of it and how it can be beautiful. And I think it's really great. I feel like it kind of shows how, like, as a child, you kind of know deep down what is right and what is you. But then, society starts to tell you, no, that's not okay. And especially like our parents, sometimes they've been almost like brainwashed to the point of like, they're so conscious of like what society is going to think of you. So they put all this pressure on you to be perfect or like better than they were. And then as you become an adult, you're finally able to start to like kind of let your child show again and like be the person you really want to be.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like your parents were forced to conform, and now like just as a pattern they're trying to force you to conform. And like I really think that with kids, yes, you have to be strict and you have to like dictate certain things, but certain things that build like character or that makes them happy and that does not hurt them in a negative way. Like, come on, it's a kid. She want to grow hair or make an afro, she could do it. Next week she's gonna decide I want a ponytail. The next week she's gonna decide something totally different. You just gotta like nurture them to that confident level where they could decide without anybody else's influence.
Exactly. I think it's a huge contribution to what happens later on, to the issues that they end up having later on, based off of the fact that they couldn't choose like what they want to wear and essentially how they want to wear it. I mean, to an extent, of course, you don't want your children running out with barely anything on, but but to the point of hairstyle and just natural style. Like, if, honestly, if 5 years or 10 years from then she looked back on that picture and was like, "Oh my God, how could I do that?" That's her own decision,
Yeah.
Like, that would have been something that she would have been like, "Wow, I really had confidence that day," and it would have been like she would have laughed at herself, but that's her laughing at herself, and that is okay, because she's not going to be like uh lowering her confidence or lowering her vibration or energy later on in life by something that she did when she was a kid. You don't really take anything you really did seriously as a kid, unless you're forced to, unless you're put in that box.
Definitely. And I feel like this gave us a great message, but where the scene where she tried to convince the grandma that it's okay for that little girl to
Yes.
wear her hair like that, hilarious. Like, how
Yeah.
shady do you look with my mascara running down your face, a hoodie on? Like,
A gray hoodie on. It's like not even like a cute pink hoodie. It's like a
no,
gray hoodie. The
blonde
typical.
gray. Oh man, definitely a great short film.
Do you guys think that she was able to convince that grandma, or?
No.
She technically convinced her to move back. She was technically like, she's like, "Move back so that I could talk to your granddaughter."
Only so that later she can be like, that was a crack whore from the street.
Yeah.
That grandma, every time that kid wants
Get
natural
in the
hair,
salon.
every time a kid comes to her saying natural hair, she's going to tell that story. There was a crack whore in front of the salon, mascara. Do you want to be that? Do you want to be that? Okay, get your hair straight. Get your hair straight.
Right. My gosh. So, moving on to the next topic, unless we have any other comments.
No, we can move on to the next one.
Yeah. So, other Treasa was such a good choice. What
Yeah.
brought you to that one?
Other is a short film, and it's like the longer title is Other, the Two Voices of Black Lives. I don't know if it was Black Lives in America, and it's about what a Black person might feel as someone is trying to show empathy to them as far as Black Lives Matter is concerned. That's the very specific topic. But I'm sure it could go broader than that. But it's not just empathy. It's like a false empathy. It's like, I'm saying this to you because I feel like I have to. And they can see through it. It's like when anyone can relate to someone trying to, relate to them in a way that just doesn't feel sincere. And in this case, the main character is a young Black woman who, is going through something really hard. It's the first time like Black Lives Matter really had a voice. And this was a few years ago. And, no one was giving it like now today. Like, it's such a huge movement. Every single state did a protest for Black Lives Matter at least once, and 18 countries around the world also participated in the Black Lives Matter protest. That was not the case a few years ago. And it was a much more, it was a more secluded movement, I feel like, that didn't really surpass many Black people. And so they were feeling, I'm sure, like the short film shows, so like no one cared, and they were going through everything as they always do, just within their group. And they were surrounded by, you know, other races in their daily life that just didn't seem to even know that something was happening to them and something was happening in the world. And when they would show any sort of acknowledgement of the movement that was going on, it was at a very like surface level amount. Like they would be like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I'm praying for you. But it just didn't feel like they really were. And they didn't ask if there was anything they could do to help. There was no sort of like, they didn't want any involvement. They just wanted to show that I know there's something going on, like, and like just show face, but that's it.
There's that part where her other side, her other voice, like the voice in her head really is saying, were you crying all last night? Like they don't feel what we feel and all that stuff. And those are thoughts mainly like throughout the entire film of like, you have that contrast of someone saying, I mean, on paper, like, I think that's the point, right? Is like on paper, it looks good what you're saying, but it's the way that it's really like the way they're saying it, that it almost seems like a hot topic. Like we're talking about this because everyone's talking about this, like as if they're new jeans, as if they're, you know, like just something that isn't deeper than what it is, as if it isn't people's lives, as if it isn't people dying, you know. They're talking about it as if it's a new trend.
Yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying. Honestly, like Treasa was saying, it just sounded like, what did she say? It just sounds like, oh, how's your day going? And you're just expected to say good, just keep it moving. Like it's one of those things where they say it just to hear you say, oh, thank you, and then they keep moving about their lives. And it was like throughout the whole film, it's just like people try to overcompensate sometimes. Because honestly, I'm black, you're Puerto Rican, she's white. That's a fact. Nobody has to pretend like you're me or I'm you or she's her somebody else. Like the point of it was like, yeah, it's like
just the way you said, or she's somebody else.
Yeah, it's like
she's the problem.
I'm the problem. I need to leave right now.
Please, make haste. No, it's like whether you act like you care too much and it comes off like I care 1,000%. You're just saying it and it comes off like it's not genuine, or whether you're like, this hurts me to the core. When it's like, how does it hurt you to the core? Or how does it, like when you're like, it affected me so much. How did it affect you? You're not of the culture, or you're not, that has never happened to you. Or when people say like, this is not the America I remember. It's like, what America did you remember? The whole short film was, the short film was kind of like, be genuine. You don't have to overcompensate. And at the same time, don't be blind. Like we're not asking you to, you know, build a Mount Olympus of black people. We're just saying like, be aware that there are two sides. Yeah, it sounds disingenuous because like you could have done it all this time. Why you gotta wait now to do it? You get me? Like just be aware of what's happening. Understand that we're not a threat, and all cops aren't good cops, and just like treat us equal. That's it. And that short film really like shows some of my day to day double sidedness. Like I could have a whole conversation, and be like, "Yeah, all right, how's the day going?" And my whole head is like, "Shut the fuck up! I gotta go. Get out my face." Or like, "You don't know what you're talking about. Get out my face." And so it was a very good short film. I watched it before Treasa chose it, but then I was like, okay, I gotta watch this again. It was just funny. Yeah, there was a little bit of humor. There's a little bit of humor in there.
There's definitely a little bit of humor. I feel like
it's definitely funny. Yeah, the moment with the waiter, like how both of them are
the woman, yeah. Also, the moment with the her giving her kid to the babysitter, it was just
Yes,
I was
yes.
dying. I was like,
That's
what?
really funny.
I was dying laughing.
You know,
But
it's, oh, did you want to?
no, I stopped
Okay.
here.
So the the thing that it reminded me of on like a level that pretty much I believe at this point a lot of people have dealt with other, I mean, you know, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, anything, you know, is death, right? So the thing that gets me is when like my grandma passed away, right? And it was the hardest time I've ever had, ever.
Yeah.
And all that anyone could say for months was, I'm sorry. For months. And I got this rage inside of me because what are you going to do with your I'm sorry? You're going to change anything? Are you going to all of a sudden make it better with your sorry? And so that's something that is like, if you think of it like that, like it's all, honestly, it's just not pretending that it doesn't exist. It's like not pretending that it just doesn't matter, but just like it's like the I'm sorry doesn't need to be said. It's
Yeah.
okay, yes, we are all sorry, but that doesn't change anything. You know what I mean? It's, well, what are you going to do to change it now from this point forward?
Exactly.
But I feel like to an extent, when something like that happens, I know you need something out of people, I guess, more than I'm sorry. But I'm going to be really honest. I feel like I'm a pretty good friend. It's so hard for me to talk to people when someone passes away. I haven't, well, more recently I've dealt with it, but before this year, I had never experienced death. I'm not a religious person, so it feels very insincere to say that I'm praying for you. It's very hard sometimes for people to figure out what the proper response is. It's not something that is taught really. It's just something that has to come from your heart, but people overthink things all the time. And I feel like for me personally, dealing with other people's deaths and trying to be there for them is so hard. For growing up, my parents would just bring food, like no matter what. If someone died, you just bring food. But now my friends live all over the country, so I mean, I really don't know how to deal with it. So maybe if you could shed light on like the proper thing. I'm as far as like Black Lives Matter goes, even when that was happening right in the beginning, I have a black boyfriend and I didn't know what the appropriate thing to do was. It's not that I don't feel for him and for his family, and know now that I'm with him like more intimately what he goes through, and I have felt afraid for him. But when everything first started happening, everyone first started saying like you have to say something and all these things, like to know exactly what to do, like sometimes people hesitate or sometimes people don't know right away the right thing to say.
Which I'm not saying, I'm not saying that I haven't been in that position as well, as like I don't know what to say in this moment. But but something that I just never, like, what I don't like to hear is just I'm sorry, because then, I mean, in the sense as if there's not like it's the bridge between like I'm sorry is something, right, where you say, where people say because someone passed, and then that's it. You move on. You go on with your daily lives.
Yeah.
But the difference here is that, okay, there's something I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I do understand that.
Yeah. So that's
Also,
the
it's
point I
like,
was making.
also, it's like in Mora's case, to me, like when my grandparents died, I didn't want, I'm sorry because you did nothing wrong. You didn't kill my grandma or
Right.
grandpa.
That's
Right.
understandable.
Just say like,
Let
she
me
had
know if there's
beautiful,
anything you can do, or
she had kids.
Yeah.
She had a long life. Like, I hope she was happy in the end. Like, like I'm sorry is like I punched you by mistake, or like I closed the door by mistake.
I
I'm
punched you by
sorry.
mistake.
It
I'm
happens.
sorry, I punched you by mistake.
It happens every day.
It happens. I'm sorry about that. This is not a take that will condemn me. Um, but that's in her case. That's how I feel about that. I'm sorry. You don't have to say I'm sorry. There's so much other words. I'm sorry sounds like not genuine because like, oh, I'm sorry. Have a nice one.
True.
It's like your dismissal. And in the
Yeah.
case of like what's been happening, it's let's break it down. Do you believe that somebody should be wrongfully killed? No. Do you believe that police can use their shields as godlike power to do anything they want? No. Do you feel like if your brother got stopped for a traffic ticket, would he be likely to die? No. So why does it happen to these group of people? So when like things like Black Lives Matter, things like any movement that is towards stopping a specific people from being targeted, it's always you have to make it's almost like you have to say how you feel or you have to portray your point across because the silence means you're agreeing and or you're just steadily it doesn't concern you. It's of no like like not even importance but it's like okay this is happening but it's not affecting me so I'm just going to stay away from it well in reality like everyday life the culture food everything is contributed somewhat to black people like especially in South Florida where I am or sometimes in New York where you are. I think Mora you're in South Florida too. We give so much. So it's like in a case like that when something's happening, the appropriate response is a response. It doesn't have to be
Right.
well crafted like, like um a 10-page paragraph because then that'd be like a little disingenuous because like or not genuine because like you wrote it down, you did research. So like you're really just like writing a good paper to convince somebody. All you really
Right.
gotta do is just like be like, what's happening is not fair, what's happening shouldn't be happening, blah 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 blah. Like as I have some of my friends, especially like my best friend's girlfriend, she's Irish. No, she's actually Brazilian or Portuguese, but like she's super like fair skinned or white skinned. She posted Black Lives Matter. Not that all lives don't matter, but Black lives are being targeted. And like just that would give you a great deal of respect, would give you a great deal of, okay, you understand and you know that something's going on. And you did more than just post about it. You understand it to its entirety. And it sheds light because like I could only reach a certain group of people. Mora could only reach a certain group of people, and you could reach a certain group of people. So if I only post, I'm never gonna get to Mora's family or Mora's friend group, and you're never gonna reach. I'm never gonna reach your friend group or your family. It's just like the more awareness we spread, the more like this is happening to a group of people who doesn't deserve it, who literally just wants to live their everyday life. They don't even want special treatment. We just don't want the bad treatment. And that's literally the easiest way to go about it. Just show that you stand on the right side or the side that just show that you understand something's going on and address that whether you think it's right or wrong. That's it.
I think also just, like to be completely transparent, I knew like I won't say I knew nothing about it, right? But I could say I knew nothing about it because I wasn't really actively putting myself out there and reading about it and knowing that that knowing how intense it is. And honestly, it's just about educating yourself. And it's sad, but that is the state of our life right now. That is the state of our nation, and that is how it was. It's how it's been. It's the foundation. It's what we built our lives on. So the goal is to completely remove that and start brand new because that's we built this nation on slavery. I watched an interview. I'm not sure who it was exactly because I was watching a lot of them, but they put it in the words of, if we're built on that, we have never gone back and not took it back, because it always will happen. It has happened, but nothing was ever like it. There's no retribution. There's no forgiveness there. There's no apology. Yeah, it just we wiped it under the rug, and even the presidents that were meant to change everything were assassinated. So it's literally like anybody who tried to change it was assassinated. They are no longer here today. So it's things like that, to where that really just, like, even the things we learn in school, we learn about all of this stuff for 2 minutes and then we move on to the next big thing. And that is the biggest problem, is that we sweep it under the rug like it doesn't matter. Well, 2020 is not the year for that. The 2020 is not the year to sweep it under the rug and act like it doesn't matter, because I stayed ignorant for way too long. And now that I'm putting myself in that state of knowing, in that knowledge, in that acknowledgement, now it feels personal, because my entire upbringing was predominantly white, Black, and Hispanic. Those are my people. But I never thought about, wow, my friends could go home right now and I might not see them tomorrow. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that, like, you don't think about that stuff on the day to day because you're not thinking about that stuff. Like, I wasn't thinking about that. I thought the biggest thing I had to worry about was being a woman and being small, because that meant that I was a target for certain types of people who like to take advantage of us. And that was my biggest worry. It wasn't necessarily that I was Puerto Rican, although being darker skinned when I was younger did have me, like, not worried about police, but worried about people, and just worried about their intentions, because racism is very much a thing. And it's baffling to know how many people who still comment that racism doesn't exist, that, white people isn't a thing, Black people isn't a thing. Seeing those comments, it's almost like, wait, okay, you could be extremely ignorant, but still, that it is, right? Like, are you, you know what I mean? To where you sort of feel like you feel it bubbling up, because they're just erasing your, any person's normal existence. It's like completely closing it off to the maximum.
Yeah, some people are ignorant, and there are those that goes the extra mile to just pretend to be ignorant. And
Right.
that's where it's like, that's the wrong. Like, if you're ignorant to something, you can eventually be taught. You can
Right.
eventually learn from it. But whenever you force yourself to be like, nope, not there, it's lying, then it's like there's it's hard for you to go back or be taught, because you're purposely denouncing the knowledge.
So with that being said, the next film is called Room Tone, which is a film that I chose. Room Tone is made by Cooper Films, which I'm not sure of his first name actually, but I just discovered him on YouTube. And funny story, I found it because I was looking up room tone for like the sound effect for my editing thing, and it popped up, and I was drawn to it because the premise is pretty much it's all about creativity and snuffing it out because of a more practical life. So he is a sound mixer who has a deep rooted passion for music, but he snuffs it out. I mean, literally, he there's a moment where he's sitting on his couch, and you can hear like the drums beating and the music going, and it's like island music. It's just beautiful, like jazz and oh my gosh, and it's beautiful. And he looks at the door, and then he turns his head, and the music stops. And in the door is his keyboard, which is the access to the music. And the reason why he puts it away is because he just his mother doesn't believe in it. he just was brought up to, ignore what he really feels. And it leads to a bunch of mundane tasks, which in my case, I'm like, oh my God, he's a sound mixer. But in his case, he just wants to be a musician. So every day this haunts him. The music just starts to play. He hears the music while sitting at a stoplight, and he can hear the clicking of his signal. And by that clicking, he starts to create a beat. And then even the honk is just like, he just feels like, okay, this is so, like, it's all musical. Everything in life is music. Toward the end, he ends up finding that he will try to just let it happen. And you can literally see his hands shaking as he tries to touch the keyboard again. So the entire film is just a great representation. So Roomtone bottles up in a short film what we as creators do in our entire lives. We are constantly told to hush the music, and do something practical, make money, that's your job, drone on. But we know as creators, we know as creative people that is not like a life that we want. That is not a life that we are worth fighting for.
Yeah. Honestly, this is one of those things that, like, you're fighting the urge to be yourself versus to drone your whole life.
Right. Exactly.
You spend You spend from like second grade or first grade, whatever grade you start at, to 12th grade in high school, which is like basically like the first 18 years of your life. Then you either go to college or you get a job. Then you get a corner office, then you do 20 years or 30 years at that, then you get a pension, then you retire, you live 12 years of retirement, die. And it's like, if that's what you want, it's okay, but really, that sounds like a lot of pain to me.
Sounds
And
like a lot of NPC, which is a non-playable character in a game.
yeah, it's like you watch him do a job where some would be happy to do. You watch him pretend to be happy, and you watch him clean the equipment, have respect for everything. But then, like, it gets into this like non-stop cycle of like, wake up, do this, do that, eat cereal, wake up, do this, do that. And he's fighting the urge, but he can never really fight the creative urge, whether it be a cinematographer or you design clothing or you just direct stuff or you make music. It's like, it's kind of like a calling. And I feel like it's one of those things that tell you don't run away from the calling because you're just wasting your time if you don't find a way to at least if you have to work to pay bills, at least do that, but still continue your creativity.
Right. Exactly. Like find a way if you really love your that spark that's just inside of you, if you love that thing, whatever that thing may be, go for it full on. If you want that corner office, if that's that spark, go ahead, do it. That's don't let us stop you. It's like just whatever it is that is burning inside of you that you feel like you cannot live without, pursue that, go for it. It's going for your dreams. Don't let anybody stop you.
What was your take on it, Trace?
I got a slightly different impression. I do believe in all of that stuff, but when they talked about the fact that he wasn't doing music anymore, it sounded like he may have spiraled into a really negative place because of his passion for the music. So I didn't feel like it was completely just because people around him didn't believe in creativity. It felt like there was something darker there and that he had to, go to a more practical living in order to find himself again. And he finally recovered and now is wanting to expose himself to his true passion again. But even still, there was some darkness that he was facing because of what he had been through, trying to pursue his passion and going through the grind. To me, it didn't feel like a child being held back. It felt like an adult who really went for his passion and he really threw himself into it wholeheartedly and honestly failed. And his mom's heart was broken by his failure because she couldn't help him. And so now that he's, has such an amazing job, he's ready to try it again. But even when he goes to the bar to listen to the music, he just listens. He's not trying to jump on on stage, he wants to take it really slow because it's almost like an addiction. He feels like if he throws himself fully into it, then he's going to lose himself again and he might mess everything up all over again.
Wow.
Damn,
Hon-
Treasa.
Honestly, wow.
Wow.
Your perspective on this is like, all right, you have a great on your own mind state perspective of things. That is, wow. I never thought of it like that. Can you
That's-
imagine? Wow. No.
We're like taken away. We're blown away right now.
I may have missed something.
No, girl. That was
You
you missed nothing. you got
described
everything.
the whole thing. Yeah. Wow. I think she might. I'm changing my thought process. I think
We
all
win.
that
She
she said.
wins. She
Yeah,
wins the
because-
prize that we never set up.
Yeah, because think about it. Why would his mom react like that? Oh, I think was that his dad or just like the actor react like that?
Yeah, I don't think that was his dad. I think that was an actor that was just seeing his struggle and was stepping forward to like give him a little
Mind
Um,
blown away.
courage. Yeah.
Mind blown away. How is your perspective so different? Wow.
I did want to ask you guys a couple questions about the film's budget because I actually like researched some of the short films a little bit to try to see if I could get other types of information just because visually, if you guys check out these films, there's definitely a budget difference. The other, which was the second one we talked about,
Yeah.
was definitely lower budget. I couldn't find a budget for that one, but even though it was lower budget, it was nominated for a bunch of things at 6 different short film festivals, which is awesome.
Wow.
And it was like an official selection for 5 of them at least, so that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I saw that. That was so cool.
Yeah. So that's really impressive for being from what I can tell from guesstimation, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that was the lowest budget one. But I wanted to ask you guys what one you thought was actually the most expensive one, because I could find numbers on a couple of these. Also, before that, said you didn't know if the creator was Cooper or not.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but that's just the production company name because this film has different directors than the next film that we're going to watch, which
Okay.
is also by Cooper Films. So just so you know.
Oh God. Yeah.
What one do you guys think is the most expensive one that we watched? Because I feel like you're going to be surprised. I feel like Amanda's cheating and she's looking it up, but
Mora, don't
I'm
you look
cheating
it
a
up.
little. Thank you. What's it called?
I can see her.
no,
I can
I was-
see her.
Okay, I
You're
did see
caught
one
red-handed.
film. I
So
did see
what do you
one-
what do you think, Rosie?
You're
First,
caught red-handed.
I did see one film, so yeah.
It's between The Big Chop and Room Tone.
Okay, I have a guess. I think honestly, weirdly, I don't know, but I think Other would be expensive because Other has so many characters in it.
true, but the quality of the camera was a lot less. I don't know if that was on purpose.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
I don't know if
Wait, did you find a number for that one? Because I didn't find a number for that one.
I didn't. So should I just not do this?
And it's not even on IMDb.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought it wasn't as expensive because it's not
Yeah.
even on
Yeah.
IMDb.
Other
that's
don't-
true.
But you could be
The
right.
only reason I think Other might have a chance is just because, like, I guess the editing, maybe. But I'm thinking.
You're hitting a soft spot.
I don't think it had significant editing. I thought the power came from the actors, but honestly, I don't know if they were paid because the star was also the writer in that one, and that's the only one.
Okay,
That's nice.
okay.
So
So I feel like it was a passion project.
Yeah. Okay.
Mora said Other. I said The Big Chop. The Big Chop.
Oh, so that's really impressive of me that you thought that because I honestly was just thinking Cooper Films, like we're gonna talk about one more of them that Mora picked after, but I thought both of
Yeah.
them were so like the lighting, the cool tones, like it's so beautifully done that I was leaning towards them. But you're right, Rosie. The Big Chop was $10,000 about, and Room Tone was $6,000. But
Wow.
Yeah, I saw Room Tone was 6,000, but wow, it shocks me because they have the most out of every film. I think, like it's a huge, because they have a production crew, they have all the props, they have, they have the set in
Right.
the very, very beginning, which I was, it's just like all of that stuff takes money. You got to rent those places.
I guess there was just as many actors in Big Chop, maybe.
You think?
Yeah, because
It was-
Big Chop had the kids, the
Yeah, but-
grandma, the mom.
Like they probably used their own crew
Oh
as
my
the
gosh,
actors
you're
for
right.
room tone, because it's about being on
Yeah.
a film set. So like maybe they didn't have to pay them so
that makes
much.
so much sense. And maybe the 6,000 really went to like renting out the spaces and food and things like that. So interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I guess the Big Chop, just because I thought for weird reasons, which I will not explain, but I thought I was I thought I was completely wrong, because like the car was not the best car in the world. The apartment was not the best apartment in the world. The only thing that made me think that it was a lot of money, for some weird reason, I thought about the going back in time, and I was like, okay, that has to be a lot of money right there.
What? Okay. You're excluded from this conversation. Leave.
They didn't like buy
What?
a time machine or something.
No, I know, I know that, but my mind makes sense of things just differently, and it worked out. Think that I picked the Big Chop, but I was like, they, they have to go back in time for that one.
I don't know what this means,
They have to
but
go
okay.
back in time for them.
Don't judge me, guys. I won.
I don't know.
That was just a little more lighthearted. We can get back into, what's actually going on in the world with the next one, which is, again, also by Cooper Films and really beautifully done. Why did you pick this one, Mora?
I chose it by literally like I went to Cooper after I watched Room Tone. I went to Cooper Films because I subscribed. I was so excited, and I discovered that a year ago, literally June 17th, 2019, he posts this video called State of America, a visual expression. You can already see sort of like what it's about, like just by the title. You had an assumption, and I thought he just posted it. I don't know. For whatever reason. And I clicked it, and it goes through our Pledge of Allegiance, which we all know it. We are forced to say it in school. And he ends of who, right? Like we're pledging we pledge allegiance, and then it's the message of like, but who are you protecting? Because yeah, we're all under God. We're all under, we are all having your protection and stuff, but they're the ones who are really feeling like they're not part of it. You know what I mean? It excludes them. It excludes Black lives, because for whatever reason, that doesn't apply to them, And I think that is a big thing, is that like, it's a visual expression, meaning that it's like an art film, and it isn't necessarily like fully story based with dialogue or any of that, but it's just these images, these powerful images of a Black man, a Black child, just looking out into the world, experiencing it. There are images of a kid kind of like trying to block out our state of being. And the fact that this was literally a year ago, and then the fact that all of these films were then again years ago, it just really highlights that nothing is changing and nothing has changed, And I think it's a beautiful film in the fact that he goes through the entire allegiance, and you're like, okay, where is this going? Because are you just going to say the pledge? Just that's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm curious. And then he goes, of who? Of us? Because we don't feel safe, and we don't have that. We don't have the right to be who we are. We don't have the right to do all these things. We're the ones who are suffering, and nobody seems to care about that. We're all still pledging your flag, to your allegiance under your God, because they don't care about us. And it's just powerful, like it hits you every minute that he's speaking. It hits you in your chest. So that is why I shared it, because it is beautifully done. And I can't believe it was a year, and that it's relevant today, because it was June, and it's June, You know what I mean? Like, anyway, continue. So you guys, I could go on forever. I love this thing. I love this film.
What did you think about it, Rosie?
Honestly, whenever somebody says, the protests are not necessary, or okay, we've protested, or they've protested enough, or anything of that nature, or even that the peaceful protest is good enough, I always tell them two things. First thing I tell them is like, there's three things happening. There's protest, there's peaceful protest, there's angry protest, and there's looters and opportunist people out there just taking advantage of the situation and stealing stuff. The second thing I tell them is, okay, we're protesting now. It's getting crazy. You're saying it's not necessary, but go back 3 years ago. Go back 2 years ago. Go back 4 years ago. Go back 8 years ago. If it was not necessary, then when we did it 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, the issue should have been solved. Since it's not solved, so it must still be necessary. Like, I had one of my friends, and she's black, and she said she's married. She's like, me and my wife, her wife is older than her. She's like, me and my wife talks about this stuff all the time. It's never gonna change, so we should just stop protesting. And I looked at her and I realized that this wasn't somebody that was angry or somebody that was like uninformed. This was somebody who was defeated, like mentally just defeated. Like, there's nothing we could do, just abide by whatever thing they do to us. It's okay. And this film really shows like why the protests are important, why it's important to always stand up for what's right, no matter if you've done it 1,000 times and 1,000 times has gone unheard. There's no such thing as we've fought enough, or we've stood for the right things too much time, or it's not our battle. If it's right or if it's wrong, if it's right, we have to stand up for it. If it's wrong, we have to stand against it. And this is one of those things where it's like, yes, there's abolishment of slavery. Yes, there's a flag, but does that flag really protect us? And does abolishment of slavery means all the racists died off or went out of existence? Because all the racism and all the Ku Klux Klan members, or whatever version of them there were, some of them didn't really disappear and die off. Some of them went to the police force, went to be a judge, went to be a lawyer, went to be blah, 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 blah. And it's like this film just shed the light of like right and wrong, and you have to stand up for it. And it's okay to question, like, what does this flag stand for? Because early on, like in high school, I think 10th grade year, 11th grade year, I went to a school where the allegiance came on, the Pledge of Allegiance came on. And I think I didn't stand up, or I stood up, but I didn't put my hand on my chest, whatever it was. I was kind of conscious of stuff like that. And I was like, this doesn't serve to me. But the teacher was like, what are you doing? My son is in the army, and this is disrespect to him. I'm like, ma'am, thank God for your son, because he is protecting us and our way of life. And honestly, I'm happy that there are people like that in the world, and like that'll give up everything just to go and protect the the rights. But honestly, this flag doesn't protect my rights, and this flag is not something that, like, when I see it, I think, I could walk outside at 9 p.m. and not be subjected to a search or get arrested. And I told her that, and it was kind of like in the middle of the class, but I tried to pull her, like, she tried to put me sideways while I was talking, and like she just like sat down for that Pledge of Allegiance, and I still stood because like there's respect for people like that, like sergeants or people that are in it for the right thing. But after that, she never really bothered me about it. She was just like, at the end of the year, she pulled me over and she was like, I understand what you said and I get why. Because she was like an English teacher, but or a math teacher, one of those. And she was like, yeah, I was like, she speaks English while
Same
doing
thing.
math. Same thing. So I was like, I get your point, and I'm sorry for thinking that you would disrespect my son. I was like, you don't actually, I understand you thought this, but I'm glad you weren't like crazy enough or like ignorant enough to just kick me out of class every time. And you actually asked me that question so I could inform you. So this film was really like one of those films that just explains a little bit of how we feel towards things like the flag, or like just justice, how it's like two sides to the justice.
Yeah, like justice for who is what he.
I thought it was a really beautiful representation of what people are feeling right now. And I thought it was an interesting contrast between the other short film that we watched, that I had recommended the other, because it's like showing the same pain, but from a completely different point of view. This one is poetic and kind of quiet and peaceful, but it's talking about something that is extremely dark and terrible that people have to, actually struggle with every single day. Whereas the others, like, more in your face, like, this is what I'm thinking, and I kind of hate you because you never understand and you never listen and you're never genuine. This one is just like a plea for, please listen to me. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I go through. You don't understand. Please listen and learn about it. So I like the contrast. I thought it was really, really beautiful. And I wanted to touch on one other thing that Rosie had mentioned, and I'm really trying hard to pull it back into my brain right now. It was as far as the protests go, how he was saying that, there's a difference between a peaceful protest and rioters and looters and a dangerous protest. And I've been, reading a lot and watching a lot of the footage, talking to friends that have been at the protests. And I just kind of wanted to reaffirm what you're saying and just tag on to it that all of the protests that I've been hearing about, that my friends have gone to, or that I'm watching footage of online or reading people's stories about, it seems like this time they really are all peaceful. But at the end of the day, when people are, trying to leave, especially as it comes close to curfew or just after curfew, and they're trying to get home as soon as possible, they are not allowed to leave. And police are not allowing these protests to end in a peaceful manner and just start again the next day. They're making them end in a horrific way. They're hurting people. And there's been footage and instances over and over again at these recent protests where, it just goes from being peaceful to being violent in a minute. And people are not allowed to leave, and they're not allowed to leave before it's even turned violent, and it's becoming a sort of game to the police. And that is really sick and sad. And it's kind of like, Rosie, you've said this to me before, but it's kind of like shows people that have never experienced racism in any form, that, like, this is what you guys go through every day in the games they play. Rosie has so many stories of growing up in South Florida, things that have happened to him that you'd think he's just making it up because it doesn't make sense. Like, why would they do the things that they did to him? If you know him, like, on a personal level, Rosie is the most just sweet, quiet, like, he's not, and that like exudes out of him. Like, he doesn't come across as like an angry, defensive, like anything that would cause like a police officer to do something like evil to him. There's nothing about him that should, have that action, but he's had it countless times. So, the way that they're just playing games with these protesters, it just shows like people that aren't aware of like what Black people are going through on a daily basis, a small little tiny part of like, what they might have to go through.
Honestly, I will take out a piece of this podcast because I know my stock has just went up.
Okay, I'll take it back.
That was an amazing way to describe me.
That's so funny. That analogy.
Don't take it back. It's too late. Honestly, like, you told me this, I think yesterday, or I don't remember when, but like that type of thing, you can see how like it's a peaceful protest. I'm trying to go home. Now you don't let me go home. Now you can see how that could transpire to be like, okay, now I'm gonna get riled up. But also, it's like there are people where they hear protests in their neighborhood and they're like, well, there's chaos, I'm going to take stuff. Those people are like, okay, arrest those people. But there are people where like they're just fed up. And it's not even just Black people, it's Black people and other people that have had contact with Black people that understand the difference, that has like a family member that's dating a Black person, or that's been like their boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, or stepkid is Black. And it's like I feel like these protests are really necessary just because we're not fighting for ourselves or our generation or our like growing up. Because honestly, most of us are above 25 or 20 and like we're fighting for the next generation. We're fighting for our nieces,
Right.
nephews, kids, daughters, stepkids. We're fighting for just we know that they shouldn't have to fight for this. This is basic human rights and we're not going to take it. Our parents took it, our parents protested it, but now this day and age is like literally 50 states. 50 states protested this like Treasa said earlier, in 18 countries, and like this is one of the biggest protests ever. And it's like we're not even fighting for ourselves because we understand we've been through the traumatic childhoods. I've been personally like stories to tell, but I've dealt with those things, and I've gone to a space where I'm like, I understand why they happen, or I get that they happen, and I can't go back and change them. But I don't want my kid, when I have one, to go into that. I don't want your kid to deal with that. I don't want Mora to call me one day and be like, this happened. I don't want nothing to happen to nobody else as it happened to us. Like, this is just one of those things where it must be stopped. And nothing will stop. No protest will stop till it's stopped. And to Tracer was even telling me a story of where they would arrest some protesters and drop them off way out of town and like they have to make their way back in the house. Like how angry would you be if somebody did that to you? Just for protesting peacefully or not. But it is the world we live in. We're working so hard to change it.
More, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I think that things like that it's the government's hope that we will stop going to protests because we don't want to be trapped and we don't want to be, stranded out in the middle of the nowhere. We don't want tear gas in our eyes, right? So maybe don't go to the protest. But you know what? It's like I was talking to my mom the other day and she knows what's going on. But again, like she had the same energy that I did where I was like, I don't know what to say and I don't know what to do. And I said, listen, I was like, Mom, these people died for nothing, for literally sleeping in their bed, going on a run. These people died because they were Black. Like imagine you went out and you were afraid that someone was just going to decide to kill you. That was just a choice that you may not make it back home. Now go to the protests in your mind and think about which this is me just if I were to die today, I would have died for something. I would have died for somebody who died for nothing. And it's that drive that it's like you're fighting against a country. You're fighting against a government, a system that is calling the protesters terrorists when they're the terrorists, when they're the ones that are attacking their own people, where they're the ones that are attacking the people that built it up from the ground up. If we're being frank, whether they wanted to or not, that's a different story. But without this very massive Black culture and just minority culture, we would have no country. It would be nothing. And they sit upon their thrones and they think that they can push us around and tell us where to be and how to be it and who to be, how to act, how to stay in our lines. But it isn't going to work this time because if we give up now, it's never going to change. And it needs to change in order for us to survive this lifetime. I heard that there are signs that are going on right now that are signs just before a nation collapses. And we're at that point. We're at a breaking point as a nation. We need to stand up and change it.
Yeah, just to go back to what Moore was saying about the tear gas and the being held against your will and not be able to leave home. Honestly, even with me that's been through stuff, I feel like, okay, you get tear gas at a protest. Okay, you get pushed around by some cops. Okay, you're forced to walk home 3 miles, 4 miles out of where you live. That is just a short period of time of us protesting and getting that happen to us. Imagine the people that have to go through their whole lives getting hosed
Right.
down, getting beaten up, getting tased, getting maced, all of that,
Getting hunted.
getting hunted. Like it's okay. It feels like it's a fraction of the price to pay to like go and show the power of the people. Like it's okay if you tear gas me now because like I'm trying to get the point across, and the point will get the point will get put across, and like it doesn't matter if you do whatever you want to discern me or to like push me away from the protest. I'm still going to protest because no matter how much you do to me now, I'm thinking about the people in the past that got way worse. Literally, there's this video going around, one of the videos that I watched in the very beginning of this protest of in the early like 60s, this black young girl, she's in her neighborhood and she's being called the N word by a couple of other white kids. And it's like, that's not their natural instinct. Their parents taught them that.
Right.
And so, like, their parents taught them that. They teach their kids that. And if we don't stop it now, if we don't protest, it's never going to stop. And I feel like we are only going through this tear gas thing, like, for a few hours or for a day or for a week or whatever. But there's people that's dead over this type of thing. And
Right.
protesting is just a way of saying, I have no idea how it feels to be dead. I have no idea how it feels to be hosed down, beaten, burned at a stake for no reason. But if this is what it takes to get your point across, and this is what it takes to get you justified in your spirits and your souls resting and make you feel like you haven't died for no reason, then I'll surely take it. Being pepper sprayed or tased or whatever it is that they're doing is one of those things where it's like, no matter how horrific it is to us, we're not going to stop because people have gotten way worse.
Yeah.
this,
It's,
this, yeah, a girl died recently. A young girl died protesting because she had asthma and they pepper
yeah.
sprayed the whole thing. And it's like, if she's that young and she understands what's wrong and right, then why are those that oppose it, that are way older than her, not getting it? They're forcefully not, they're purposely not getting it. It's no longer a choice of logic or like you're not educated. It's now you've educated yourself and you still choose against it.
It's also interesting if you think about it. Our generation is on social media. Everyone, it's hard to ignore what's going on if you are on social media because it's in your face. It's everywhere. Everyone is speaking up, everyone is sharing stories, and everyone is telling you how you can donate, how you can, go to a protest, how you can get involved in any sort of way, whether it's just sharing more posts or, like I said, donating or actually like going. And what is it called? When it comes to older generations, I know most of the adults in my life, they are not on social media. Like my parents aren't even on Facebook. So my parents' generation, and then think about those above it, like I know there is some grandparents on Facebook. My grandma used to be one of them, but actually my grandpa used to be on Facebook. I never go on Facebook, so I'm hoping and assuming it's similar to Instagram, but I really don't know. Actually, a lot of the reposts that I've seen on Instagram that are coming from Facebook are actually kind of gross. So I don't really know what that environment is like. But I know for those that aren't on social media, what they're seeing is completely different than what we see on Instagram, because we're seeing on Instagram like real stories. We're seeing like real footage from the protests, from people that are actually there. We're seeing footage that was like pulled from online, showing like the police corruption, showing bricks being hidden throughout the protest sites by police officers so that people can, turn to looting at some point, like because it's in their face, like, oh, here's a weapon to loot.
And we're seeing the cops destroying the water bottles.
Yes, exactly. But if you are only watching CNN or Fox News or your local news network, you're not seeing this stuff. You're seeing something very different. I know for sure because I've had these conversations with people, and like on the news, they're trying to tell a completely different story. They're telling a story how the police are kneeling when, if you look at the full footage, they only kneeled for 5 seconds for a photograph for that news television network to show like that they're with the protesters, this and that. But like there's literal news footage that my cousin showed me where I'm from in Buffalo, I believe that's where it was. I know where I'm from. But
I think I'm from Buffalo.
they kneeled and the television network showed it as the police, you know, showing sympathy for the protesters, but then they were actually just kneeling. Like one would kneel and one would still be standing, and they were doing it in a sort of way to show their support, but actually they were preparing their like pepper spray or something. They were like preparing for an attack. And like 5 seconds after that clip that was showed on the news aired, they actually like tear gassed, I believe. So they were actually getting their what is it called? I'm really bad at explaining things, but they were getting their riot gear ready so that they could tear gas. And so they were doing it like in a one up, one down type of way, because as they were kneeling down, I think they were putting their riot gear on. So it just shows like the news can like, you know, show things in a completely different light. Even my mom was telling me on the news that they were saying that the old man that got pushed down by police officers, I believe he was like in his mid 70s, and he was actually bleeding like in the video clip. But on the news, they're telling a completely different story. They're saying it's his fault that happened to him because he was being really aggressive with police, and that the video footage that you're seeing is actually clipped up and edited to make it look like the police were doing something wrong. And they're saying that he actually came at the police, but it's not shown in the footage. And protesters are just making it look bad for police, but that's not true. And they actually twisted it to make it seem like when all the police officers resigned to show support for the man that brutally pushed a senior citizen on the ground. On the news, they're telling that as a story of like, oh, they had to resign because I forget how they said it, but it was something in support for the police officers. Like, when in reality, they resigned to show support for that one police officer who got in trouble because he actually attacked a senior citizen for no reason. And then all the police officers just walked away as his head was literally had a puddle of blood under it. Like the footage wasn't that good, and we could so clearly see. Also, Mora, you edit stuff all the time. I'm not that great, but I do too. I can tell that the footage I seen online was not edited. I don't know if they edited a different version for television, but like they showed the whole thing from before it happened till after it happened.
Right, exactly. To literally him walking up to the police. Okay, if anything he raises his hand, but he's like pointing towards something like over there, something like that. And he's 75 years old. He's not going up to them and punching them in the face.
Look,
you know what I mean? If you're gonna full on assault, then okay, you're like, it's gonna happen. They're gonna push back. But I wouldn't be surprised that if he...
But that's not true. Even like a mentally ill person, like if they're freaking out in a public store or public place, they don't knock them on the floor like that and break their head. They don't. They restrain them properly.
Look, if a 75-year-old, fragile old man terrifies you to the point where you have to shove him down, please don't be a cop. Like,
right. See, here's something I learned was that the police actually don't have that many hours in conflict management. They have something like, I think it's honestly like 12 hours, 18 hours of conflict management, which is the biggest part of their job, why they are supposed to be protect and serve. But they don't have a lot of that. They don't know how to properly engage with someone these are like things that are just coming out, and you're like, wait, what? Like, I have more hours than you in my field than you have in protecting this country and protecting its citizens, and, you know, and like handling these situations better. and they're
Yeah.
just, it's so apparent, that they're taking out their own ego, like, I can push you, I'm going to push you away. And then not thinking, like, okay, he's old. Literally, if he were to fall, he could break something, which in this case, it was his skull. So congratulations.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you're a cop. Great. Okay, he's rioting or he's protesting. Great. Okay, you disagree with him. Great. Now, why does more than one cop have to deal with one old man? And it's like,
It's so true.
it's like, what? Like, I just don't get it. If I'm scared of fires, I'm never becoming a firefighter. If I'm scared of water hoses, I'm never becoming a firefighter. Like, if you're scared of certain things, like, just don't do it. And it's,
Right.
and like, cops are people too, and I get that. But this is a field where a few bad, a few rotten apples or a few bad
Yes.
ones is not
See, the
like,
thing is with that phrase is that it is a few bad apples ruin the batch. So it's not just like, oh, a few bad apples and then that's it. No, like a few bad apples it will taint your batch of apples, like throw out the whole bunch, because in that scene, it is exactly that. It is one bad apple shoving the guy, right? Then the other bad apples are walking over him. Then you got a good apple who's like, I really want to go help this guy. And then you got the other good apple who tries to help the guy. And then a bunch of bad apples are like, keep walking forward. And so now you've got a whole bunch of bad apples because nobody helped that man. Although they did call medic, but still, don't push him on the floor. And then at the very least, I mean, if he died, if those are his last moments, that's your fault. Which last time I heard, because I was very curious about this when I watched the video and heard about all of it, is how stable he was doing. And as of a couple of days ago, he was in stable condition, but still, I don't know if he was awake or anything, but like he was just stable. He could breathe on his own.
thank God he didn't die. I never really focused on this comedian named Chris Rock until like maybe a week ago, and somebody told me like what type of comedian he is. And so he has this skit where he's like, okay, cops are at a very stressful job. We get it. And a few bad apples in the bunch is like a good statistic, but not when it's a certain type of job. Imagine if you're trying to fly in an airline, right? And they're like, we have a few bad pilots. They crashed a bit. We're not all deaths. Would you still fly the airline? Cops are allowed. You're not allowed to be a bad apple in that bunch. Your job is to literally protect and serve. You have to do both parts of that. You can't be biased on that. Everybody,
Right.
It feels like cops nowadays feel like everybody's guilty until proven innocent. And it's like, that's not how it should be at all. But things will change. The protest continues. And honestly, our generation is doing a great job through the use of social media, through the use of word of mouth, through the use of kids talking to their parents, because we're 20, I'm 20 something, Maury 20 something, Treasa 20 something, and our parents were in the 60s, were in the 70s. And so it's kind of our job to re-educate them on certain things. And thank God through social media and all that stuff, our generation is, doing a great job and changing the stigma, or that showing that Black lives are essential, and we're not asking for special treatment, just the bare average
Bare
minimum. That's all we
to
need. Yeah,
live.
that's it. That's literally it. But that was a great, just to come back to it, that was a great short film. Definitely a great short film. I'm actually going to watch it with my little sister after we're done with this podcast.
Nice. Will she actually be awake? It's pretty early.
Yeah, she won't be awake, but rude awakening. So
Just jump into the bed. Watch this movie. This is your culture. Like, look at it. Look at it.
if she calls the cops, somebody please bail me out.
Oh my God.
So we are actually reaching the end of the podcast because we've been recording for quite a while now. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about before we kind of came to a close? I feel like we covered a lot, and I'm really happy that we actually took the time to redo this podcast and make it a little bit more enlightening and more on the topic of what is going on in the world. I feel like it's eye-opening for even me. So yeah, I appreciate you guys doing it and not murdering me for deleting the first one.
Right. Yeah. yeah, I mean, I think it was a really good moment, good point for us to talk about.
Oh, I actually did want to say one last thing. And to steal your thunder, thank you. Mora. um,
You think they're for scared?
I am really, really glad that we decided to do this just because it not only did talking or whatever open my eyes, but it made me realize like I would never see these short films if I didn't purposely search for Black creatives and Black short films, because I'm going to be honest, I have the privilege of not having to think about it when I search for something. If I search for the best short films, what comes up, I'm going to relate to it. And, you know, taking the time to actually think about it. The first time we filmed this, we had one out of three were of a Black creator, from a Black creator. And I'm pretty sure, Rose, you probably had to specifically Google Black short films to find that one, because when I would look for the, you know, the most popular ones, that's not really what comes up. Like if I just search best short films of this year, you know, the majority aren't going to be that. So I just wanted to state that it was really nice to take the time and like actually notice and recognize that it's something you have to look harder for. And that's just, you know, that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
True, and like even though like you're black directors or black actors, just artistically and stylistically, like it didn't have to be about Black Lives Matter for it to be a good short film.
Yeah,
And
of course.
especially like the first one that I chose. So I feel like that becomes where it's like, why aren't they being shown more when it's like it's not toward a specific subject? It's like there's romance short films, there's horror short films, there's all these the same varieties as white directed or white cast short films. And it's like more like Treasa said, that is part of the problem where it's like, why aren't they being shown when they're not specific to one thing and they're not specific to one people? It's
Yeah.
literally just art made by
Right.
Black people.
Right, because anyone can relate to a romance, like if it's Black, if it's
Yeah.
white, like
It's Puerto Rican.
right.
Unless
But
it's in Spanish, then it's like, okay,
we just have to make more of an effort to make sure that like we are being exposed to everything that's out there, because sometimes we're not, and it's just by default and we're not realizing it.
And it's filtered because, you know, even in feature films go out and, you know, like it's this past like 10 years that has started, you know, that we've started being able to see bigger films with an all Black cast and everything, other than, you know, because I believe
Nominated,
that it was like, you know, where you're like, okay, yeah, like that, because that was just genuinely a great film. Like it's not because, you know, it's not because they're Black, it's not because they're white, it's because of the art itself. And
yeah.
you know, I believe that as creators, you know, just being creative, color is like something that, I mean, personally, that I'm always like drawn to where it's like the differences, the diversity, because you don't want just one template. You don't want just like all one kind of person to relate to. It's like, it's just art. Just put it out there no matter what you like, no matter what the people look like in it. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
Let
like, I
people
don't
be the
even
judge of it.
Yes, exactly. Like let them relate to it on their own. Don't filter it. Don't like,
Right.
you know, like be like, oh, this isn't going to do well in the theater, so we'll have it shown in smaller theaters around, you know, which that was something that people used to do, and now it's becoming a lot more prominent. I mean, like let them try. You know what I mean? Like it's at that point of like, let them try to change it back to the way it used to be, because the audience now is a lot more, we want to see that. We want to see, we don't want
more
to see the
open
same
to
old
it.
movies. Yeah, exactly. And I
Like
feel like it
SNL.
also, yes. Yeah. Continue, Rose.
Sorry about that. Like SNL made a few skits like how like a movie would be or would have a Black role, a Black leading role,
Mm-hmm.
or like great Black characters, and then they would nominate like the Golden Globes or whatever it is, whatever high prestige award show is,
Oscars.
would nominate like the janitor who did nothing but is white, the broom
Right.
who just stayed there, and like
The broom.
yeah, that's you know it's funny because it's like it's making fun of something that's real and it's they're using the comedy to soothe it out a little bit, but it's very much true. It's like why? It's like if it's just like James Bond is a great character and like instead of him getting the award for best actor, they give it to like henchman number 95. It's like it's like dang, what
But
is
James
going
Bond
on
is
here?
white though.
Yeah, no.
No, she's just saying if that
Oh, okay.
happened.
Oh, let me get me started.
Henchman number 95.
Sorry, Rosie doesn't know what James Bond is.
Issa,
No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, Issa Alba. I don't know if I'm saying his name right,
Who?
but
Oh, Idris
Issa
Elba. Oh my God,
Alba.
he's okay. Okay, we won't
So
even. He's his accent.
yeah, relax, calm down, Mora. Whoa.
So Idris Elba, if you're out there listening to our podcast, Mora loves you. Okay.
And give us
Oh my
money.
God.
Yes, we'll sell you one Mora for X amount of dollars.
Sell me? Oh my God.
No, but he did a thing where he went out and tried for that role, and he
Really?
did not. And he did not get it. And like I was like, I seen it, and I was like, what is it that 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 he did wrong? And so P Diddy made a whole commercial, and it was about like not even James Bond itself, but it was like a cologne. But he did the whole thing, like jumped out of the car, explosion behind
Oh,
him,
cool.
suit, and he was just like showing that he could be James Bond. Why not?
Yeah.
And it was just
Idris
Alba
Elba
has
could
the,
be literally anything he wants to be. Like he's
including
been
Mora's husband. I'm
but
gonna just put
it's
that
just
one
so
out there.
crazy because he's on The Wire and like he plays Stringer. I think Stringer, is he Stringer? I don't remember, but either way he's on The Wire. I forgot his name right now, but he's on The Wire and that's where I first saw him. And then
Yeah.
and then he's in all of these movies where he's playing the perfect husband and or he's playing this badass person or he's playing a really kind Englishman. Like where you're
Yeah.
like, what? This is you? This is who you are? And it's like he's so diverse. I didn't know that he could
Yeah.
have been
If you
James
thi-
Bond.
Yeah, if you think that he can't, there's a show called Luther. Watch Luther. Like the recent adaptation of James Bond, it's kind of like this person that could be well put together and calm and collected, but has a lot of, like vices and a lot of uncalculables or like you never know what he's gonna do next. And that's literally Luther. Like, wow. But that's just one of those things that I'm hoping that he just was too big or something. Like he was like we need James Bond to be 5'8" and he was just like 6'2". So they're
Oh,
like, eh.
come on. What? That makes
That's what I'm
no
throwing it up.
sense.
That's what I'm throwing it up to. And he has
It's
the British
because
accent.
yeah, which makes him
That's
10
James
times more
Bond.
attractive. Oh, right, that
Okay,
too.
Treasa, please contain your friend. Treasa,
Contain your friend.
she's shooting her shot.
Yeah, well,
But all in all, I'm glad that films are recognizing or starting to recognize more black creatives like Black Panther, the director was black, Get Out, all those type of films, Moonlight.
yeah.
I'm glad that things are starting to shed light, and I'm glad, like Tracy said, that she's glad she watched those short films because she wouldn't have, if they searched it, if she searched it, they wouldn't have popped up just like best short film. You have to type best black short film. So that's something that, that will be eventually worked on. But all in all, very great, very happy that we came across these podcasts. I mean, these these short films, especially Trace's perception of these short films, because I was blown away. I'm still thinking about it. That's what I've been doing this whole time, just thinking about it. Like, wow, I did not see that.
Oh my God. Okay, so if you're done kissing Trace's ass.
I was just going to say, if we have like one fan out there that just wants to compile all the times that Rosie gives me compliments on the podcast, I'd love it.
Oh my God. All right, so with that, what do you think about closing?
Yeah, I think it's been a really good podcast. I'm really happy with it. Again, thank you guys for not killing me and trying to make an even better podcast than the one that got deleted.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that the second time around, we're warmed up, we're comfortable.
Right. And let us know in the comments if you guys have any other short film recommendations. We're forgetting some of the stuff we said originally since, again, we already filmed this. But please let us know if you have any recommendations, and let us know if you watch these short films, if you have any feedback. We'd love to become more interactive. We'd love to watch some things that you guys recommend. So please let us know.
Let us know. I need another
All right.
short film.
And so with that, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Friday and Saturday and Sunday. It's a weekend.